Our American Government, 2003 edition. H. Con. Res. 139 agreed to June 20, 2003, 108th Congress of the United States of America, at the first session. Our American Government, Democracy, and its American Interpretation 1. What is the purpose of the U.S. government? The purpose is expressed in the preamble to the Constitution. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. 2. What form of government do we have in the United States? The United States, under its Constitution, is a federal, representative democratic republic, an indivisible union of 50 sovereign states, with the exception of town meetings, a form of pure democracy. We have at the local, state, and national levels of government, which is federal because power is shared among these three levels, democratic because the people govern themselves and have the means to control government, and republic because the people choose elected delegates by free and secret ballot. 3. What is the role of the citizen in our government? The United States today is even more of a participatory democracy than was envisioned by the founders when they established a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, as President Abraham Lincoln later described it, along with the constitutional responsibilities which accompany citizenship, such as obeying laws and paying taxes. The citizen is afforded a wide range of rights and opportunities to influence the making of public policy by the government. At the most basic level, the right to vote gives the citizen a chance to help select those who will ultimately be responsible for determining public policy. Beyond casting the ballot, a citizen may actively assist in nominating and electing preferred public officials through volunteer activities and campaign donations. The participation of citizens in the electoral process contributes greatly to the sense of legitimacy of the government. Citizen involvement in the government need not be manifested only during election campaigns. Legislators are accustomed to hearing from constituents expressing opinions about issues of the day, and procedures exist that mandate that executive agencies allow time for public comment before proposed regulations become final. Individuals may also join with others who hold similar views to make the most of their influence with government on particular issues. This is how interest groups or political action committees are established and the lobbying process begins. 4. What contributions has our country made to the institution of government? Some of the U.S. contributions to the institution of government are as follows: a written constitution, an independent judiciary to interpret the Constitution, and a division of powers between the federal and state governments. The Constitution. 5. What is the Constitution? The Constitution is the basic and supreme law of the United States. It prescribes the structure of the U.S. government, provides the legal foundation on which all its actions must rest, and enumerates and guarantees the rights due all its citizens. The Constitution is a document prepared by a convention of delegates from 12 of the 13 states that met at Philadelphia in 1787. The original charter, which replaced the Articles of Confederation and which became operative in 1789, established the United States as a federal union of states, a representative democracy within a republic. The framers provided a government of three independent branches. The first is the legislature, which comprises a two-house or bicameral Congress consisting of a Senate, whose members are apportioned equally among the states, and a House of Representatives tithes, whose members are apportioned among the states according to population. The second, the executive branch, includes the president and vice president and all subordinate officials of the executive departments and executive agencies. The third branch, the judiciary, consists of the Supreme Court and various subordinate federal courts created by public law. The 27 amendments approved since 1791 are also an integral part of the Constitution. These include Amendments 1 through 10, known collectively as the Bill of Rights, and Amendments 11 through 27, which address a wide range of subjects. At the present time, 4 amendments without ratification deadlines are pending before the states. These deal with congressional apportionment, child labor, titles of nobility from foreign powers, and certain states' rights in a pre-Civil War proposal. In addition, the ratification deadlines expired on 2 proposed amendments, which had been approved by Congress in the 1970s, equal rights for women and men and voting representation for the District of Columbia in the Senate. House. 6. What were the basic principles on which the Constitution was framed? The framers of the Constitution debated and agreed to the following 6 basic principles. 1. That all states would be equal. The national government cannot give special privileges to one state. 2. That there should be 3 branches of government, one to make the laws, another to execute them, and a third to interpret them. 3. That the government is a government of laws, not of men. No one is above the law. No officer of the government can use authority unless and except as the Constitution or public law permits. 4. That all men are equal before the law and that anyone, rich or poor, can demand the protection of the law. 5. That the people can change the authority of the government by changing, amending the Constitution. One such change provided for the election of senators by direct popular vote instead of by state legislatures. 6. That the Constitution and the laws of the United States and treaties made pursuant to it are the supreme law of the land. 7. What is the Bill of Rights? The Bill of Rights is a series of constitutionally protected rights of citizens. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution, ratified by the required number of states on December 15, 1791, are commonly referred to as the Bill of Rights. The first 8 amendments set out or enumerate the substantive and procedural individual rights associated with that description. The 9th and 10th amendments are general rules of interpretation of the relationships among the people, the state government, and the federal government. The 9th Amendment provides that the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The 10th Amendment reads, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people." 8. What are the rights enumerated in the Bill of Rights? Right to freedom of religion, speech, and press. Amendment I. Right to assemble peaceably and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Amendment I. Right to keep and bear arms in common defense. Amendment II. Right not to have soldiers quartered in one's home in peacetime without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war except as prescribed by law. Amendment III. Right to be secure against unreasonable searches, and says Juris Amendment IV. Right in general not to be held to answer criminal charges except upon indictment by a grand jury. Amendment V. Right not to be put twice in jeopardy for the same offense. Amendment V. Right not to be compelled to be a witness against oneself in a criminal case. Amendment V. Right not to be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Amendment V. Right to just compensation for private property taken for public use. Amendment V. Right in criminal prosecution to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury, to be informed of the charges, to be confronted with witnesses, to have a compulsory process for calling witnesses in defense of the accused, and to have legal counsel. Amendment 6. Right to a jury trial in suits at common law involving over $20. Amendment 7. Right not to have excessive bail required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Amendment 8. 9. How may the Constitution be amended? Amending the Constitution involves 2 separate processes. First, amendments may be proposed on the initiative of Congress by 2/3 affirmative vote in each House, or by convention on application of 2/3 of the state legislatures. So far, a convention has never been called. The second step is ratification of a proposed amendment. At the discretion of Congress, Congress may designate ratification either by the state legislatures or by conventions. Ratification requires approval by 3/4 of the states. Out of the 27 amendments, only one, the 21st, ending prohibition, has been ratified by state conventions. The first 10 amendments, ratified in 1791, were practically a part of the original instrument. The 11th Amendment was ratified in 1795, and the 12th Amendment in 1804. Thereafter, no amendment was made to the Constitution for 60 years. Shortly after the Civil War, 3 amendments were ratified, 1865 to 1870, followed by another long interval before the 16th Amendment became effective in 1913. The most recent amendment, the 27th, was ratified on May 7, 1992. At the present time, there are 4 amendments pending before the states that were proposed without ratification deadlines. 10. How long may a proposed amendment to the Constitution remain outstanding and open to ratification? The Supreme Court has stated that ratification must be within some reasonable time after the proposal. Beginning with the 18th Amendment, it has been customary for Congress to set a definite period for ratification. In the case of the 18th, 20th, 21st, and 22nd Amendments. The period set was 7 years, but there has been no determination as to just how long a reasonable time might extend. In the case of the proposed Equal Rights Amendment, the Congress extended the ratification period from 7 to approximately 10 years, but the proposed amendment was never ratified. The reasonable time doctrine recently arose, as well, in connection with an amendment pertaining to congressional pay, proposed in 1789 without a ratification deadline. The 38th state, Michigan, ratified this amendment on May 7, 1992, to 203 years after its proposal. The amendment was certified by the Archivist of the United States, since it did not carry a term limitation, as the 27th Amendment to the Constitution. 11. What is the Lame Duck Amendment? The Lame Duck Amendment is the popular name for the 20th Amendment to the Constitution, ratified on February 6, 1933. It is designed to limit the time that elected officials can serve after the general election in November. This amendment provides, among other things, that the terms of the president and vice president end at noon on January 20th, the terms of senators and representatives end at noon on January 3rd, and the terms of their successors then began. Prior to this amendment, the annual session of Congress began on the first Monday in December. Article 1, Section 4. Since the terms of new members formerly did not begin until March 4th, members who had been defeated or did not stand for re-election in November continued to serve during the lame duck session from December until March 4th. Adoption of the 20th Amendment has reduced but not eliminated legislation by a Congress that does not represent the latest choice of the people. For instance, 11 of the 33 Congresses from 1933 to 1999, 73rd through the 105th Congress continue to meet after the November general elections. 12. Have any amendments to the Constitution been repealed? Only one, the 18th Amendment, Prohibition, ratified in early 1919, was repealed by the 21st Amendment in late 1933. 13. What is meant by the separation of powers and checks and balances in the federal government? The separation of powers and checks and balances are two fundamental principles underlying the Constitution. They work together to prevent a tyrannous concentration of power in any one branch, to check and restrain government, and, ultimately, to protect the rights and liberties of citizens. The Constitution contains provisions in separate articles for the three branches of government: legislative, executive, and judicial. There is a significant difference in the grants of authority to these branches, each of which is also given an independent base of political power. The first article, dealing with legislative power, vests in Congress all legislative powers herein granted. The second article vests the executive power in the president, and the third article states that the judicial power of the United States shall be vested in one Supreme Court, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. In addition to this separation and independence among the three branches, the Constitution sets up auxiliary precautions, as James Madison called them in the Federalist Papers, that allow each branch to check and balance the others. For instance, President can veto bills approved by Congress and nominates individuals to the federal judiciary. The Supreme Court can declare a law enacted by Congress or an action by the President unconstitutional, and Congress can impeach and remove the President in federal court justices and judges. The legislative branch, the Congress. 14. What is Congress? The Congress of the United States is the legislative, lawmaking, and oversight, government policy review body of our national government, and consists of two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives, members, offices, and staff. 15. What qualifications are prescribed for a member of Congress? The Constitution, Article 1, Section 2 for the House and Section 3 for the Senate, prescribes qualifications for members of Congress. A member of the House of Representatives must be at least 25 years of age when entering office, must have been a U.S. citizen for at least 7 years, and must be a resident of the state in which the election occurred. A member of the U.S. Senate must be at least 30 years of age to enter office, must have been a U.S. citizen for 9 years, and must be a resident of the state in which the election occurred. 16. What is the term of a Congress and how often must it meet? A Congress begins at noon, January 3rd of each odd-numbered year following a general election, unless by law a different day is designated. A Congress lasts for 2 years, with each year normally constituting a separate session. The Legislative Reorganization Act of 1970 requires Congress to adjourn sine die not later than July 31st of each year unless there is a declared war, or unless Congress otherwise provides. In odd-numbered years, Congress must take an August recess if it fails to adjourn by July 31st. Neither the House nor the Senate may adjourn for more than 3 days, excluding Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays without the concurrence of the other chamber. It has also become a common practice for Congress to adjourn after making provision for the House and Senate leaders to summon Congress back into session in emergency circumstances. Similarly, the Constitution grants the President the authority to summon the Congress for a special session if circumstances require. 17. How many members does each state have in the Senate and House of Representatives? Each state, under the Constitution, is entitled to 2 senators, each serving a 6-year term, and at least 1 representative, serving a 2-year term. Additional House seats are apportioned on the basis of state population. See State Population and House Apportionment Table in Appendix. 18. What is the size of the House of Representatives, and how is it determined? The membership of the House of Representatives is fixed in law at 435 members representing the 50 states. In addition to the 435 representatives, there is 1 delegate for each of the following: the District of Columbia, the Virgin Islands, Guam, and American Samoa, each elected for a 2-year term, as well as a resident commissioner. Puerto Rico, elected for a 4-year term. The delegates and the resident commissioner can sponsor legislation and vote in committees, but not in the House chamber. The Constitution entitles each state to at least 1 representative. Beyond this minimum, representatives are apportioned among the states according to population. Population figures used for apportionment are determined on the basis of each 10-year census. Following the 1990 census, the average district size was about 570,000 people. Since 1941, Congress has used the method of equal proportions to calculate actual apportionment in order to minimize the differences in district populations among the states. 19. Who defines the congressional districts? The federal government or the states. Congress fixes the size of the House of Representatives, and the procedure for apportioning the number of representatives among the states, and the states themselves proceed from there. State legislatures pass laws defining the physical boundaries of Congress, in all districts, within certain constraints established by Congress and the Supreme Court through its reapportionment and redistricting ruling. Each state is apportioned its number of representatives by means of the Department of Commerce's decennial census. In the very early years of the Republic, most states elected their representatives at large. The practice of dividing a state into districts, however, was soon instituted. Congress later required that representatives be elected from districts composed of a contiguous and compact territory, but this requirement is no longer in federal law. The redistricting process has always been provided for by state law, but Congress can choose to exercise greater authority over redistricting. In 1967, for example, Congress by law prohibited at-large elections of representatives in all states entitled to more than 1 representative. Today, all states with more than 1 representative must elect their representatives from single-member districts. 20. What is a member of Congress? A member of Congress is a person serving in the Senate or the House of Representatives. A member of the Senate is referred to as senator, and a member of the House of Representatives, as representative or congressman or congresswoman. 21. What is a delegate or resident commissioner? As distinguished from a representative, the office of delegate was established by ordinance from the Continental Congress, 1774 to 1789, and confirmed by a law of Congress. From the beginning of the Republic, accordingly, the House of Representatives has admitted delegates from territories or districts organized by law. Delegates and resident commissioners may participate in House debate, but they are not permitted to vote on the floor. All serve on committees of the House and possess powers and privileges equal to other members in committee, including the right to vote in committee. Currently, there are 4 delegates in the House and 1 resident commissioner. 22. What oath of office is required for members of Congress, and when is it administered? Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution requires that members of Congress and all executive and judicial officers shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support the Constitution. The oath of office is as follows: I, A.B., solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign or domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take the obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter. So help me God. Representatives take the oath of office on the first day of the new Congress, immediately after the House has elected and sworn in its Speaker. Those senators elected or re-elected the previous November take the oath of office as the first item of business when the Senate convenes the following January. Representatives elected in special elections during the course of a Congress and senators appointed or elected to fill a vacancy in the Senate generally take the oath of office on the floor of their respective chamber when the clerk of the House or the Secretary of the Senate has received formal notice of the new member's election or appointment from state government authorities. On rare occasions, because of illness or other circumstances, a member-elect has been authorized to take the oath of office at a place other than the House or Senate chamber. In those circumstances, the clerk of the House or Secretary of the Senate sees to the proper administration of the oath. 23. In the event of the death, resignation, or declination, refusal to serve, of a member of Congress, how is the vacancy filled? The Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 4, requires that all vacancies in the House of Representatives be filled by election. All states require special elections to fill any House seat that becomes vacant during the first session of a Congress. Procedures governing vacancies occurring during the second session of a Congress differ from state to state and are largely dependent on the amount of time intervening between the vacancy and the next general election. In the Senate, when a vacancy occurs for any reason, the 17th Amendment directs the governor of the state to call an election to fill such vacancy and authorizes the legislature to make provision for an immediate appointment pending such election. Among the states, only Arizona and Wisconsin do not allow the governor to make interim appointments, requiring, instead, a special election to fill any Senate vacancy. Prevailing practice in the states is that a special election to fill the vacancy is scheduled to be held at the time of the next statewide general election. 24. How can members of Congress be removed from office or punished for misconduct? It is generally understood in Congress that the impeachment process stipulated in the Constitution, which involves both House and Senate actions, applies only to the removal of the President, Vice President, Supreme Court justices, and federal judges, and civil officers of the U.S. government, and not to the removal of members of Congress from office. The Constitution states that each House shall be the judge of the qualifications of its own members, and may punish its members for disorderly behavior, and with the concurrence of 2/3, expel a member. Thus, disciplinary actions taken against a member are a matter of concern for that House acting alone. Each chamber has established a committee charged with reviewing allegations of misconduct against its members, the House Committee on Standards of Official Conduct and the Senate Ethics Committee. The rules of the House and Senate also contain a code of official conduct. The Ethics Committees review charges against a member filed by another member or by a private citizen. The most severe punishment that can be imposed by either the House or Senate is the expulsion of the offending member. This action requires, constitutionally, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the members of the chamber voting, a quorum being present. Alternatively, the House may vote to censure a member for misconduct. This requires only a majority vote, and under party rules in the House, a censured member automatically loses any committee or party leadership positions held during that Congress. In the Senate, the terms censure and denunciation are used almost interchangeably for violations of this magnitude. A less severe form of disciplinary action, in both the House and Senate, is a reprimand again imposed by a chamber by a simple majority vote. Typically, reprimands are reserved for ethical violations that are minor or appear to be inadvertent or unintentional on the part of the member. Additionally, members of Congress are subject to prosecution for treason, felony, or breach of the peace. Generally, when a member has been indicted for a felony, a leave of absence from any party or committee leadership position must be taken so long as the charges are pending. Usually, the House or Senate will not initiate internal disciplinary action until the criminal proceedings against the member have been completed. 25. Are members of Congress, to some extent, privileged from arrest? Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution states that senators and representatives shall in all cases, except treason, felony, and breach of the peace, be privileged from arrest during their attendance at the session of their respective houses and going to and returning from the same. The phrase treason, felony, and breach of the peace has been construed to mean all indictable crimes, and the Supreme Court has held that the privilege against arrest does not apply in any criminal cases. 26. Who are the officers of the House and how are they chosen? Elected officers include the Speaker, Clerk, Sergeant at Arms, Chief Administrative Officer, CAO, and Chaplain. Another officer, the Inspector General, is appointed jointly by the Speaker, Majority Leader, and Minority Leader. Each of these officers appoints the employees provided by law for his or her department. For an overview of the House's leadership and administrative structure, see the accompanying graphic, House of Representatives. The Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, says that the House shall choose, their Speaker and other officers, the members vote as they do on any other question, except that in most cases it is strictly a party vote. Republicans and Democrats both meet before the House organizes for a new Congress and choose a slate of officers. These two slates are presented at the first session of the House, and the majority party slate can be expected to be selected. Traditionally, the majority party's nominee for chaplain is not contested. The nominees for clerk, sergeant at arms, CAO, and chaplain are elected by a tally recorded by the House's electronic voting machine. For election of the Speaker, members' names are called alphabetically, and they respond by orally stating the name of the candidate they prefer. 27. What are the duties of the officers and senior officials of the House? The officers and officials of the House are, except where noted, elected by the House at the beginning of each Congress. They are the principal managers for the House of essential legislative, finance, administrative, and security functions. Their duties are prescribed in House Rule 2 and in statutes. The Clerk of the House, The clerk is the chief legislative officer of the House. After each election, the clerk receives the credentials of newly elected members and presides at the opening of each new Congress pending the election of a speaker. The clerk keeps the official journal of House proceedings, certifies all votes, and signs all bills and resolutions that have passed the House. The clerk's office supervises the enrollment of legislation which originated in the House and its presentment to the President. The clerk's office also supervises legislative information resources in the House, the PAGE program, and units providing public documents to the press and public. 28. What are the duties of the Speaker? The Speaker presides over the House, appoints chairman to preside over the Committee of the Whole, appoints all special or select committees, appoints conference committees, has the power of recognition of members to speak, and makes many important rulings and decisions in the House. The Speaker may vote, but usually does not, except in case of a tie. The Speaker and the Majority Leader determine the legislative agenda for the House and often confer with the President and with the Senate leadership. 29. Could a person other than an elected representative in Congress serve as Speaker of the House? Technically, yes. There is no constitutional impediment to such a selection. The House is empowered to choose its Speaker and other officers without restriction. But this possibility is unlikely, and indeed, the Speaker has always been a member of the House. 30. Who was the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the longest period of time? Sam Rayburn of Texas, who was a member of the House for 48 years and 8 months, served as Speaker for 17 years and 2 months. However, the record for longest continuous service as Speaker is held by Thomas P. Tip O'Neill of Massachusetts, who served consecutively for 10 years, thus surpassing John McCormack, 8 years, 11 months, and 23 days, Champ Clark, 7 years, 10 months, and 29 days, and Joseph G. Cannon, 7 years, 3 months, and 24 days, 31, who presides over the Senate. The Constitution provides that the Vice President of the United States shall be the President of the Senate. Article 1, Section 3. As President of the Senate, the Vice President presides over the Senate, makes parliamentary rulings, which may be overturned by a majority vote of the Senate or by supermajority, 60 votes, in certain instances, and may cast tie-breaking votes. At first, Vice Presidents presided on a regular basis, but in recent years they are present in the chair only when a close vote is anticipated, during major debates, or on important ceremonial occasions, such as the swearing-in of newly elected senators, or during joint sessions. In the absence of the Vice President, the Senate elects a President pro tempore, President for the time being, to preside. In recent decades, it has become traditional for this post to go to the senior senator from the majority party. The President pro tempore assigns other members of the majority party to preside by rotation during each day's proceedings. These senators and the President pro tempore retain their rights to vote on all issues before the body and to debate when they are not presiding. 32. Who are the officers of the Senate? How are they chosen, and what are their duties? By resolution, the Senate elects 5 officers: the Secretary, Sergeant-at-Arms, Chaplain, Secretary for the Majority, and Secretary for the Minority. For an overview of the Senate's leadership and administrative structure, see the accompanying graphic, United States Senate. Secretary of the Senate. As the Senate's chief administrative officer, the Secretary supervises offices and services supporting the Senate's day-to-day operations, including those of the parliamentarian and the legislative and executive business clerks, responsible for processing legislative documentation. Among the other offices supervised by the Secretary are the Senate Library, the Senate Historical Office, Curatorial and Conservation Offices, and the offices of the Reporters of Debates and of the Daily Digest. The Secretary officially certifies the bills and resolutions passed by the Senate, records senators' oaths of office, records the registration of lobbyists, and administers the federal election records required to be filed by senatorial candidates. Sergeant-at-Arms. The Sergeant-at-Arms is the chief law enforcement and security officer of the Senate, charged with enforcing Senate rules and regulations in the chamber and in Senate office buildings. The Sergeant-at-Arms implements orders of the Senate, including locating absent senators and, when so directed, making arrests. The Sergeant-at-Arms notified President Andrew Johnson in 1868 and President William Jefferson Clinton in 1999 of impeachment charges to be tried in the Senate. As the Senate's protocol officer, the Sergeant-at-Arms escorts the President and other dignitaries during official visits to the Capitol, leads formal processions during Senate ceremonies, and arranges funerals for senators who die in office. The Sergeant-at-Arms supervises many Senate support services, including the Senate Computer Center, the Service Department, Senate Postal and Telecommunications Services, gallery services including pages, media galleries and services, re-recording, studios, doorkeepers, and Capitol tour guides, among others. Secretary for the majority, generally nominated by the majority leader with the approval of the majority conference, the organizational body of all majority party senators. The secretary for the majority oversees party activities in the Senate chamber and the majority cloakroom. The secretary supervises telephone pages and messengers, organizes meetings of the majority conference, briefs senators and staff on pending measures and votes, and conducts polls of senators when requested by party leaders to determine senators' views on scheduling issues and pending Senate business. Secretary for the minority. The secretary for the minority is chosen in the same manner as is the majority secretary, that is, by the minority leadership and conference. The duties of the post are essentially the same as those of the majority party secretary. Chaplain, nominated in the conference of the majority party senators. The full Senate elects the Senate chaplain. The chaplain prepares and offers the convening prayer each day the Senate is in session, provides pastoral services to senators, their families, and staffs, and supervises the scheduling of appearances by guest chaplains. Traditionally, changes in party control do not interrupt the tenure of the chaplain of the Senate. 33. What are party leaders? The political parties in the House and Senate elect leaders to represent them on the floor, to advocate their policies and viewpoints, to coordinate their legislative efforts, and to help determine the schedule of legislative business. The leaders serve as spokespersons for their parties and for the House and Senate as a whole. Since the framers of the Constitution did not anticipate political parties, these leadership posts are not defined in the Constitution but have evolved over time. The House, with its larger membership, required majority and minority leaders in the 19th century to expedite legislative business and to keep their parties united. The Senate did not formally designate party floor leaders until the 1920s, although several caucus chairmen and committee chairmen had previously performed similar duties. In both houses, the parties also elect assistant leaders, or whips. The majority leader is elected by the majority party conference, or caucus, the minority leader by the minority party conference. Third parties have rarely had enough members to need to elect their own leadership, and independents will generally join one of the larger party organizations to receive committee assignments. Majority and minority leaders receive a higher salary than other members in recognition of their additional responsibilities. 34. Are the majority leaders elected by their respective houses of Congress? No. Rather, members of the majority party in the House, meeting in caucus or conference, select the majority leader. The minority party members, in a similar meeting, select their minority leader. The majority and minority parties in the Senate also hold separate meetings to elect their leaders. 35. What are the duties of the whips of the Congress? The whips of the majority and minority parties keep track of all politically important legislation and endeavor to have all members of their parties present when important measures are to be voted upon. When a vote appears to be close, the whips contact absent members of their party and advise them of the vote. The whips assist the leadership in managing the party's legislative program on the floor of the chambers and provide information to party members about important legislative-related matters. The authority of the whips over party members is informal. In the U.S. Congress, a member may vote against the position supported by a majority of the member's party colleagues because of personal opposition or because of opposition evident within his or her constituency. In most cases, parties take no disciplinary action against colleagues who vote against the party position. The majority and minority whips in the House and Senate are elected by party members in that chamber. In the House, with its larger number of members, the majority and minority whips appoint deputy whips to assist them in their activities. 36. What are party caucuses or party conferences and party committees? A party caucus or conference is the name given to a meeting, whether regular or specially called, of all party members in the House or Senate. The term caucus or conference can also mean the organization of all party members in the House or Senate. Democrats refer to their organization as a caucus. House and Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats call their three organizations as conferences. The caucus or conference officially elects party floor leaders, the party whips, and nominates each party's candidates for the speakership or president pro tempore and other officers in the House or Senate. The chairs of the party conferences and other subordinate party leaders are elected by vote of the conference or caucus at the beginning of each Congress. Regular caucus or conference meetings provide a forum in which party leaders and rank-and-file party members can discuss party policy, pending legislative issues, and other matters of mutual concern. The party caucus or conference also traditionally establishes party committees with specialized functions. Party committees generally nominate party members to serve on the various committees of the House or Senate, subject to approval by the caucus or conference. Policy committees generally discuss party positions on pending legislation. Steering committees generally plan the schedule of chamber action on pending legislation. Research committees conduct studies on broad policy questions, generally before committees of the House or Senate begin action on legislation. Campaign committees provide research and strategy assistance to party candidates for election to the House or Senate. The chairs of party committees are generally elected by their respective party caucus or conference. The exception is the House Democratic Steering and Policy Committee, which is chaired by the Speaker of the House when the Democrats are in the majority, or by Democratic Floor Leader when they are in the minority. The caucus or conference may also decide to appoint task forces to perform research on a new policy proposal or to assist the formal leadership in developing a party position on important legislation. These task forces are traditionally disbanded once their work has been completed. 37. What are caucuses? Congressional member organizations and other similar groups. Congressional member organizations, CMOs, commonly referred to as caucuses, are groups of members of Congress formed to pursue common legislative objectives. CMOs are voluntary groups that have no legal or corporate identity. CMOs take a variety of forms. Some are comprised only of House members, some only of senators, and some have a membership drawn from both chambers. Many CMOs are bipartisan, having both Republican and Democratic members. A number of CMOs have been organized around state or regional issues and around subjects concerned with fostering legislative attention to particular policy topics. CMOs do not receive separate offices or facilities. Instead, they work out of individual representatives or senators' offices, using the staff and facilities provided to members of Congress who are active in a particular group. 38. Do members of the House have individual seats on the chamber floor? Representatives had individual seats until the 63rd Congress, 1913, but now members may sit where they choose. Democrats occupy the east side of the chamber, on the Speaker's right. Republicans sit across the main aisle, on the Speaker's left. Two tables each on the Democratic and Republican sides of the aisle are reserved for committee leaders during debate on a bill reported from their committee and for party leaders. 39. Do senators have individual seats assigned them? Yes. The individual seats in the Senate are numbered and assigned on request of senators in order of their seniority. Democrats occupy the west side of the chamber on the vice president's right. Republicans sit across the main aisle to the vice president's left. There is no set rule for seating of independents. By custom, the majority and minority leaders occupy the front row seats on either side of the aisle, and the majority and minority whips occupy the seats immediately next to their party's leader. 40. Do the terms senior senator and junior senator apply to age or service? The word senior or junior as applied to the two senators from a state refer to their length of continuous service in the Senate, and not to their ages. Thus, a senior senator may be younger in age than the junior senator from the same state. 41. What provisions are made for offices for members and committees of the Congress? The Capitol Hill office complex includes offices for House and Senate leaders and officers, and for certain committees in the Capitol building itself, plus 5 House office buildings and 3 Senate office buildings, plus additional rented space in commercial of Vice Building, near Union Station, north of the Capitol. The 3 main House office buildings are located on Independence Avenue, south of the Capitol. Proceeding from east to west, the 3 buildings are the Cannon House Office Building, completed in 1908, the Longworth House Office Building, completed in 1933, and the Rayburn House Office Building, completed in 1965. The buildings are named for the speakers of the House at the time the construction of the buildings was authorized. In these buildings are located the personal offices of each member of the House, as well as the offices of House standing committees. 2 additional buildings were purchased in 1957 and 1975 for use by the House for additional office space. The first building, on C Street behind the Cannon Office Building, was renamed the Thomas P. O'Neill House Office Building in 1990 and demolished in 2002. In addition to space for House committee and subcommittee staff, the building is now also the site of the House Paid School Dormitory. The second building on D Street SW was renamed in 1990 the Gerald R. Ford House Office Building. Before becoming Vice President and President, Mr. Ford was House Republican leader from 1965 to 1973. He is the first person not to have been Speaker to have a House Office Building named after him. The Senate office buildings are located on Constitution Avenue, northeast of the Capitol. The buildings were completed in 1909, 1958, and 1982, and are named in honor of influential 20th century Senators Richard B. Russell, D. G. A., Everett M. Dirksen, R. I. L., and Philip A. Hart, D. M. I., respectively. In addition to office space in Washington, D.C., representatives and senators are entitled to rent office space in their districts or states. 42. What organizations are included in the legislative branch? In addition to Congress, the House of Representatives, and the Senate, the legislative branch includes the architect of the Capitol, the Government Printing Office, GPO, the Library of Congress, and the legislative support agencies. The architect's principal duties involve the construction, maintenance, and renovation of the Capitol building as well as the congressional office buildings and other structures in the Capitol complex, such as the Library of Congress buildings. GPO publishes the Congressional Record, Congressional Committee hearings and reports, and other congressional documents, as well as many executive branch publications. The Library of Congress, in addition to providing library services, research, and analysis to Congress, is also the National Library. It houses premier national book, map, and manuscript collections in the United States, serves a major role assisting local libraries in book cataloging and other services, and supervises the implementation of U.S. copyright laws. 3 support agencies are also part of the legislative branch: the Congressional Budget Office, the Congressional Research Service in the Library of Congress, and the General Accounting Office directly assist Congress in the performance of its duties. On occasion, temporary advisory commissions are established and funded in the legislative branch. 43. What are the functions of the congressional support agencies that are funded in the Legislative Appropriations Act? Legislative support agencies funded in the Legislative Appropriations Act include